Chapter 7. Okay, I'm going to chapter 7. Chapter
Yeah.
8. Oh,
it
there
looks
she
a little
is.
bit like Phyllis
she is.
Diller.
All right. Hello and welcome back to the Not How I Remember It podcast. I am Mandy and I am joined by my co-host, Jenny. I won't talk over you. You can say your
No, that's fine. Jenny. Yeah.
Today, we are talking about Harriet the Spy, which was written by Louise Fitzhugh. Fitzhugh? Is that how you say her name? Fitzhugh.
I don't think I've ever said her name out loud, but yeah, sure. Louise Fitzhugh.
Fitzhugh.
Or is it Fitzhugh?
Fitzhugh. It's probably Fitzhugh. Yeah. I was giving it the silent H in there, but no, I think probably Fitzhugh is more appropriate than Fitzhugh. Oh, goodness. Yes, this book was one of my absolute favorite books as a child. Mm-hmm. So much so that I lobbied, if we had a girl, to name her Harriet, because I wanted to call her Hattie. I didn't win that argument either, in the gene pool or with my husband.
No,
but so we never needed a girl name.
I love that, Hattie. That is so cute,
right? Isn't it cute? Because I love this book so much as a child, and I just thought so highly of it. I was like, Harriet, that's such a great, fun name.
Yes, it is. I do. I have an Aunt Harriet.
Oh, do you?
I do, and I always thought it's a great name for a human, but I also always thought it would be really cute for a dog. But I'm like, but I have a human Harriet in my life, so I probably don't want to make a dog.
Right. Name a pet.
I just
after
thought
it
that
as
was
well. Yes.
That was fun.
So do you want to give us a little review of what the book is in case anyone has not read?
Mm-hmm. So Harriet the Spy was a book that came out in 1964. So we're going back in time again with another book. And I'll just read the blurb on the back. And it says, Harriet M. Welsh is a spy. She staked out a spy route. She writes everything down about everyone she sees, including her classmates and her best friends in her notebook. And then there's some spoilers here. I won't say them yet. It says, then Harriet loses track of her notebook and it ends up in the wrong hands. Before Harriet can stop them, her friends have read the awful, always truthful, sometimes awful things she's written about each of them. Will Harriet find a way to put her life and her friendship back together? So
there it is. Harriet the Spy. All right. Well, I'm just going to come out and say it, that this book is not how I remembered it. Spoiler alert, going to jump to the end here and tell you it's just not. I remembered it being much more spy novel. Her, writing things in her notebook. And there was a little of that.
Yeah.
But there wasn't nearly as much of that Harriet in her clandestine adventures that I remember.
Where did that book go? Because that's the book I remember. She's walking around New York. She's just, taking notes on people. Maybe there was a mystery here or there.
Right.
This book has no mystery.
None.
None at all. And the thing that confused me to start out, and I was trying so hard to go with the book and not necessarily be reading it from the adult point of view, to try and remember as my child self, like what was so great. But it started out problematic because on the cover of the book, Harriet is wearing a red sweatshirt and blue pants. But in the book, they describe her as wearing an old dark blue sweatshirt and old blue sneakers. And so I'm like, but did the illustrator not read the book?
Oh,
so that threw me. And then I could only see Michelle Trachtenberg as Harriet the Spy.
This is the one that was in my school library.
Yeah.
There she is, right there on the front.
This is mine. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
So, but she's not I don't know. Is she wearing a raincoat?
She's got a yellow raincoat on.
She's got a yellow raincoat. So I was just very confused about Harriet's setup, her wardrobe and ensemble. So that started me off on a weird.
The illustrator must read the book. It really is crucial.
It's very crucial. So Harriet, I can't figure out what to do with my headphones. So Harriet, so she was just her, old spy outfit. I like it. I liked the fact that she wore sweatshirt and jeans and had her notebook and her belt. But she's like, again, I feel like she wasn't so much spying as like judging.
Yes. Like I remember it as her being like really inquisitive, right? As a child reading this, I was like, oh, she's just really inquisitive. She wants to know what's going on. Yes, there were some things where she, wrote some unkind things about friends at school and, had to work through those later on when people found her spy notebook. I recall having one of those little like small flip notebooks, that I loved to have when I was little. But yeah, there wasn't that investigating and being inquisitive and being observational. It really was just sort of judging people.
Yeah. So let's give an example of the judging. So on page 30 of my book, she goes back to school, gets off the bus, and Carrie Andrews got off the bus, and Harriet wrote, Carrie Andrews is considerably fatter this year. Yeah. And then Laura Peters got out of her station wagon and she wrote, and Laura Peters is thinner and uglier. I think she could use some braces on her teeth.
Yeah. Well, first of all, were a lot of people wearing braces in 1964? So that seems like an interesting thing. But also there was a lot of fat shaming in this book. And the Harriet in my mind was sort of like a plump little girl who was like, always like going around. And maybe that's my like movie television image in my brain that I created. But there was a lot of fat shaming. Miss Golly's mom and other friends.
Even her dad pretended like he wasn't. She wasn't actually fat, but he was pretending on one page. He's like, all right,
he calls her a fat lady, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I don't know. That was interesting. And Harriet's friend, whose name now I'm blanking on.
Sport,
yes. Who had an alcoholic father. Certainly didn't catch that when I was reading it as a child.
No.
But as an adult, I was like, someone maybe should call DCFS. Because
or maybe Harriet's well-to-do family should have him over for dinner more often.
Yes. So that's another thing. I don't remember Harriet being so wealthy that she had a nanny and a cook. Mm. I do remember Miss Golly, but I kind of thought Miss Golly was just sort of, I don't like the babysitter, but clearly was like the live-in nanny.
Wait, and then I'm going to have to post this, but this is again, another problem with the illustrator here. This is my picture of old Golly.
Oh, that is? Oh, I keep calling her Miss Golly. You're right. It's old Golly.
What? Isn't this terrifying?
Yeah, that is.
All the pictures in my copy are a little
Did you
terrifying.
Have this? Can you see that?
Yes. That
was another strange thing. Although I love that she used the dumbwaiter.
That's who doesn't love a dumbwaiter?
That was fun times right there. But she went in the dumbwaiter and would spy on neighbors. And this is when I got like, yes, okay, this is the part I remember. And she was spying on some crazy, apparently quite wealthy neighbor who lived in the same building that she lives in the dumbwaiter. And I thought, no, this is what I can get behind. This sounds like a really good time until she got caught. But
and then she got caught. Yeah. And then is this another picture we'll put up? Is this another picture?
Oh, yes. Of that lady she was spying on.
Is it the same lady?
I think so.
Okay. We're going to have to put up these pictures on our
people aren't
site,
gonna,
but
there's some,
the illustrations I found scary. And I don't know.
This is my old Golly.
Is she Frankenstein?
I don't know. Who illustrated this book? We really should look into that. It does not give the illustrator credit, at least in this copy that I have. But
it might in mine, but the print is very, very small. Yes. And my eyes do not
Mm-mm.
Oh, no, sorry. Written and illustrated by Louise Fitzhugh. So,
well, Louise certainly has an interesting illustration style. We'll just say that.
Yeah.
This is the Harriet I remember right here. We'll put this picture online. We probably should stop talking about pictures on a podcast.
Right.
But
Zero stars.
We will we should save that for our documentary about. Yeah. But anyway, I don't know. She was like the original Gossip Girl of New York.
Yeah,
like, she was like, I thought, oh, is this where they got the Gossip Girl concept?
She's like the Whistledown of
Lady Whistledown of the Upper East Side.
Do you think if I read it in a British accent, it might come off?
Oh, maybe.
Carrie Andrews is considerably fatter this year. I don't know.
So I did love how much it talked about how much she loved reading. So I think maybe that's, I remember that part of it. Like how much she loved to read. She stayed up late to read. She, hid books in her room.
Had a flashlight.
Yes.
Yeah. So I loved.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that she wasn't, like everybody else. She was a little different, a little quirky, I think.
Yeah. Oh, she was real spunky. Yeah. I remember like at the beginning, she was talking to Sport and talked about saying, oh, that baby is ugly. And like another time when she was talking to her other friend at school about this is kind of dark humor, but how if you're going to slit someone's throat, you would do it at nighttime. And her friend said, oh, no, I would just poison them. And I thought, oh, maybe this is why I like the kind of she wasn't prim and proper by any means.
Right. She wasn't having, a tea party. Yeah.
Yeah. I also loved how like old Golly convinced her to take dance. She didn't want to take dance lessons, remember? And old Golly convinced her that, well, a real spy might need to be able to dance.
Yes. So it was absolutely true. I mean,
right? I mean, is there a James Bond movie where a female spy doesn't have to dance with someone to sort of steal the key card from
every time there's a ballroom and then you've got to climb through something, but you have to dance first.
For sure. So. You have to get something out of that pocket, that Tuck's pocket, right? So
absolutely you do.
I also love that she played the onion in the school play.
What a bizarre play.
And her specialty was just rolling around.
And that was hilarious pictures that you podcast friends can't see.
Yeah.
But I did really, I liked her relationship with old Golly too. I thought it was really sweet. And I was really upset the other few weeks ago when old Golly left. I was like, I can't read anymore. It's too upsetting to me.
Right.
That old Golly was
getting married. Yeah, old Golly was getting married. It seemed
kind of abrupt. Okay, now I'm going. Bye.
Right, right. They went for ice cream and by the by.
Yeah,
I'll be getting married and today's my last day, sort of thing.
Leaving. Right.
And it's just yes, I was sad about that too because they did seem to have a really lovely relationship, and I mean, her parents weren't around at all.
No.
Which made me feel a little bit more empathetic towards her that like, well, here's this girl who obviously lives, in a beautiful home and she's got, maids and she's got nannies and she's got a cook but her parents really weren't engaged with her.
No, which is why she ate tomato sandwiches all the time.
Right.
But no, they weren't engaged. Like the dad sometimes, but the mom, it was just like a very wealthy, bored parents who just kind of floated along from dinner party to bridge to this and that. And so I think probably what I also liked was her wandering the streets of New York, just looking around. I thought that was really interesting.
Right.
Fun, for a kid to do. The way that she had her bearings about her, she was a city kid and she just wandered around here and there, knew how to get in yards, alleys, apartment buildings. So I think that would have been really interesting to me as a kid, as the topics sort of went over my head.
Right. Yeah. Right. Some of those other details missed, but I think it said it had that same appeal of the mixed up files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler, right? Of that, imagining what it would be like to be in the big city and be independent and walk around and, the things he could do in the 60s and the 70s before, Dateline told us that every child got stolen.
Right.
So,
exactly.
But so I do think that probably was some of the appeal of it. And just sort of, she had some independence, she was this only child. I know you grew up as an only child. And so maybe you didn't have that same desire to be like, ooh, that'd be kind of fun to be an only child that, as someone with a sibling, not that I didn't absolutely adore my brother, but when it's something you're not, that's not your own existence, it seems more exciting. So,
and probably another reason she was a little bit bored is because her household didn't have another sibling either, so she just kind of had to find some things to do.
Right. Especially when her parents weren't really engaged with her at all. So dumb waiter it is.
Dumb waiter it is to find. But all the people that she spied on had bizarre lives,
Like the whole episode with Bruno.
Yeah.
There was a whole, Bruno worked for this business. It was like a delivery business. And I was just sort of like, what? I don't understand some of it. They just seemed like random stories that just didn't.
It's sort of kind of disconnected
very
stories, like kind of sometimes how the Ramona chapters were just like one chapter, different things. This, you thought that it was going to be all connected, but in some ways it wasn't. And then when she lost the notebook, as if she wasn't odd enough anyway, now all the people, including her friends, had reason to be angry with her.
Right.
And I just felt so bad for her, even though she wrote some really snarky, awful things.
Right.
That maybe you shouldn't bring in your notebook where there's a chance of losing it. But I was just like, because we've all been there where something happens and you're kind of on the opposite end of the firing line.
Right.
It's horrible. Or your kids have been, or
you say something maybe you shouldn't have said in like a moment of, snarkiness. And then you feel bad about it later because, someone's overheard it or.
Yeah. That whole thing. Oops, I said it out loud and it didn't sound as funny as it did in my head. And now somebody's insulted. And
And that's a big, I did love that about her, is that she was clearly a very flawed character, right? We didn't write her to be this perfectly good child who's always doing what she's supposed to be doing. She was really flawed. And I think a lot of kids have to deal with that sort of, that social aspect of how to interact with others and what's appropriate to say and not appropriate to say. And, and hers was in a notebook, but kids today it's on, Instagram or Snapchat or, in a text message that can be, screenshot and shared around. So it's a universal theme of like, be careful what you say, really think about it, and because you wouldn't want it said about you,
Right. And that's how, after the pandemic and all the things, I guess my ideas were that people might be a little more sensitive to stuff. And now that didn't happen at all. No. I think I might have mentioned this in our book club, but there's a meme going around and it's like what I thought life would be like in a functioning town, and it was a picture of busy town. And like you do something
Richard Scary
and you do something wrong, you get scolded and you learn a lesson and everybody grows, and unfortunately I feel like now people are very stagnant. Nobody's growing, everybody's just
everyone's
a pain
just
in the ass.
just going to be stuck writing in their own notebook about those other people and their thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the reviews I read mirrored what you had said. It just said, or is it echoed, mirrored? I don't know, that Harriet was flawed. And that's why kids liked her, because I mean, nowadays and in the 60s too, kids were, you're perfect. I know people dressed up and you kind of had to just be more like, be a lady, be this. And there wasn't as many options for what you could be. And then you have Harriet, who's like writing, like, one of the things that was funny was, I bet the lady with the cross eyes looks in the mirror and feels just terrible. Like she just
says whatever.
She just says whatever. Let's have a spunk. And, that's not what, like, that one was sort of a little funny because it was a little more general as opposed to writing about somebody's weight or something. But I did feel kind of bad for Harriet, and I did want more of a story.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was a really good comparison when you compared it to the Ramona books, because it really was like that. Like, each section was really its own story. There wasn't a continuous story from beginning to end. They were each like these little vignettes of Harriet's experiences, which I don't remember it that way. I remember it as like, a story about Harriet the Spy. And so maybe that's part of the reason why I had trouble really getting into it, because I was like, oh, wait, what? Now we're doing something completely different. But you're right. I think that's a really good point about because she was flawed. Maybe that was what was appealing for it, because I so fondly remember this book that even when I like brought it up to people I work with of like, ooh, we're reading Harriet the Spy. And they're like, oh, I love Harriet the Spy. Right. Everyone was like loving Harriet the Spy. And I didn't want to be like, well, so again, it's interesting to read these. Some of them I feel like, oh my gosh, that really held up. I still loved it today. And others, this one for sure was one of those that I love it for what it meant to me as a child.
Yes.
But would I recommend this to a kid to read now? No.
Yeah.
I don't think it is nearly as engaging enough. And that's not any fault of its own, right? We're in a different publishing age.
We are.
But I absolutely adore it. I would still, that ship has sailed. I will not be having any other children, but maybe a future pet. I would name Harriet, because I still love that name, and it still holds such a place in my heart of how fondly I remembered reading this book, and how I sort of connected with how much she loved reading too. Like, I loved those parts where she was like sneaky. She was supposed to be asleep and in a room, and she was, like had the flashlight reading under her covers. Yes. And I loved that sort of image of being so addicted to a book that's like, I can't go to sleep. I have to read.
I've got to read it. Yeah. And I guess my other issue is that do you ever watch Doc Martin? No. It's a British show about a doctor.
Based on the shoes? Is it based on the shoes?
No,
are the shoes not named after?
No. Well, maybe. And so he's this British guy, and it's been like 5 seasons. Well, it's been like 10 seasons, but to me, it's been 5 seasons. And like, I feel like his character doesn't ever grow. So I kind of have lost interest. And with Harriet at the end, they're like, old golly is right. Sometimes you have to lie. And I'm like, I don't think that's quite the message that I was waiting for at the end of the book. I was, sometimes you have to just nod your head and smile.
Right.
But you're not lying. Like, there's ways to placate people without just downright lying. I don't know. But again, I don't want to like criticize the book, because I have such good memories of it. But Did you watch the movie ever?
No, I don't recall watching the movie.
Because we're a little old for the movie.
Yeah.
And our kids are a little young for the movie.
Yeah. I do remember there a movie. And I think isn't there like a new, is it on Netflix or something? There's a new animated series.
Yeah. So I wonder if that Harriet solves mysteries or just
thought about people. I thought about reading it or like watching one of the movies or watching the Netflix special to see like, is this the same sort of, now that I've read the book, is it the same Harriet or do they, change the character a little bit? Is she more introspective? But I haven't had time for that. So we're just going to stick with the Harriet that I remember. And again, it's fun. It is really fun to reread these books.
It is so fun.
And remember like, because I had completely forgotten about Old Golly and Sport and, all those different characters that are also in them. So it is fun to read them. And I do, sort of remember like some of the feelings that I had as a kid reading it, when I read these books again. But yeah, this one was a little like that Sweet Valley High, and that it was a little bit more challenging to get through. Was it Sweet Valley High? Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit more challenging to get through because I didn't love it like I thought I was going to love it.
Yeah.
So it took a little bit. It took a little bit longer to get through. Hence the reason why this podcast.
It took me like 8 years to get through it. I was like, "Hold on, Mandy, I'm almost done. I had to take a break."
We'll tackle another. We've had a couple in a row, so we got to find something that's really gonna grab us and be like, oh yes, this was fun.
Like the mouse and the motorcycle. No, just kidding. We are not doing that one. Maybe we might have someday, but
I know your husband is really
for that one,
really wanting us to cover the mouse and the motorcycle. I saw there was a teacher cleaning up their room. They were moving buildings, and the teacher had like 20 copies of Mouse and the Motorcycle. And I thought, well, we could make it a group read.
Yeah,
everyone can read the Mouse and the Motorcycle.
But no, hopefully the next one we pick will be how we remembered it, or not how we remembered it, but in a good way.
Yeah, really. No. Yeah. So I enjoyed reading it again, just to sort of reminisce about how much I enjoyed it as a child, but it didn't hold up as well as some of the other books that we have read held up, I think.
I agree.
Yeah. So I would be intrigued to know if the, because clearly other people feel strongly of, a strong connection to it, because they made it into a movie, and now they've made it into an animated series. So we aren't the only people who were like, oh, Harriet the Spy.
Right. It's just, sometimes maybe you just keep it in your memory and don't read it again. Yeah.
This one, I wouldn't tell a kid, oh yeah, ignore the cover. You should totally read it. Which is what I do with a lot of books in my library, to be like, oh, I know the cover's not great, but
the cover's silly.
This one I'm like, it's
just pass.
Let's look for a different one. So
yes.
So we're gonna tackle one next. I'm sure we're both gonna absolutely love. I don't know what that one's gonna be, but
we don't know. But we will post the pictures for everybody about that. We spent the podcast talking about. So imagine a scary lady, and then we will put those on the Facebook page as well as Instagram, so that you can check it out. And if you have suggestions for us to read, I know I did have one from a friend. It was not a book I had heard of, and when I looked for it, I wasn't one that I could find easily. So I'm still looking into that one if that person is listening. But if you have suggestions, or like, no, you really should read this one. You're gonna remember it just like it was, and it's going to be fantastic. Please let us know. We are on Instagram, we are on Twitter, we are on Facebook. It's the Not How I Remember It podcast. And like it and leave a review if you want, because apparently you're supposed to do that.
Yeah, apparently. Like and subscribe, as they say.
Yes.
That's how all of the kids get internet famous.
Exactly.
And we want to be like that.
Yeah.
With our book series. All right. So thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. And we will catch you the next time we finish a book.
Sooner than later.
Yes. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
It's not working. It's not working.
It's done.